Welcome back to Ultralets podcast. I'm here today with Ultralets best dressed man, Jack Newton, who works within the company, but did start off as a client of ours back in, when was it, Jack?
2020?
2020, all those years ago, pre-pandemic years. So Jack started off as a client of ours, and then he now works here within our investment financial services department. So welcome to the podcast, Jack. I know we sit next to each other all day long anyway, but I thought it'd be really good to show some of our customers and friends of the business, just to share your journey a little bit, because it is a bit of an interesting one, in my opinion. Started out as an investor. Why was that? And tell us a bit about the background of where you got into it.
Yeah, I think it was something I always wanted to do. My gran recounts a story of me being about 12 at the dining room table at their house, talking about, I'm going to do this. I want to invest in property. I want to have
specifically property, not just investment.
No, specifically property. Right. I was 12, so I think the stock market was a bit of a bit distant for me at that point, a bit too much to comprehend. But I always sort of liked the idea. I don't know if it was Homes Under the Hammer as a kid, daytime TV during the summer holidays, or what. I don't really know. I remember sitting through mortgage appointments with my parents. They always used to take me along.
So you were quite involved, I guess, in their...
Massively involved in just sort of hearing them talk. My dad worked nights through a lot of my childhood. So I think when my parents were having those conversations, I was always around. It wasn't as if it was like 7 p.m, Jack's gone to bed, let's talk about money.
Yeah.
I was always there for those conversations. I think I took a lot from that.
It's similar to me, actually, that. I think when you're around it a lot, it kind of piques an interest a little bit more, maybe a bit younger than most people.
Absolutely. So it was always about savings. Started off, got a job as a kid, paper round, that kind of thing. And it was always just, can I save? And I was saving for like my first car from starting my paper round at 13, 14. Yeah. So, it was always kind of...
Did you get enough money together for a car?
I did.
Did you?
I did.
Yep.
You know what? It wasn't a cheap experience.
No, I imagine.
And not an investment.
No, definitely.
But nonetheless, a bit of a passion project, I think, to be 17 driving your own car. So that was all part of it. It all kind of accumulates together, really, wanting savings, wanting a passive income. And then it just finally sort of happened.
Yeah. So you left school then, and you've got all this ambition to get into investing in something.
Yeah.
Probably property.
Yeah. But it was really interestingly, it was always separate to what I wanted to do for work.
Right.
I was always going to join the military.
Yep.
That was always the plan. Right. So I was never going to be an estate agent, or I was never going to be a mortgage advisor or whatever insurance. It was never that. This was always something that was going to be passive.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. And separate.
Yeah.
Left college. Did a bit of work for the year between leaving college and starting in the army. And it kind of went from there, really. I was 19, so you're earning realistically mega money at that age. Every penny that you get is spends.
Yep.
All the way through from starting and training, it's there. Your food expenses, your accommodation are all taken off.
It's all paid for,
tax, all paid for. So everything you've got, it's either weekend time or you save it and invest it.
So did you have an early sort of mindset with that to say to yourself, and discipline to say, right, I've got this quite a lot of surplus cash really for my age. A lot of people, probably me included, would be tempted to go out there and enjoy myself with it, but you didn't.
Pretty much. I mean, I didn't, I started a good life.
Yeah.
I wasn't tight with myself. Yeah. In fact, my first job was to get rid of that first car that I'd saved so hard for and buy something a little bit more exciting. So that was the first one.
Right.
After that, absolutely, I was putting money away, very disciplined, just, I don't know, maybe £500 a month sort of thing. Just start with this, let's go with this. And every month, because it was there. Didn't have expected bills, didn't have any liabilities other than the car.
So it was affordable to do it, really.
It was really affordable.
And still have a lifestyle.
Yeah. Still, I lived in the same room as everyone else, even though I was spending half the money they were spending. Yeah. We were in the same accommodation. There wasn't like no class system there. There's nothing at all. It's just like you're in a single room.
Yeah.
Your free time is where you spend your money or you save it, and that was that. So that started probably out of training. Initial training was 14 weeks. So you just save the entire time there because you don't leave camp. So that's like, you walk away with that and your money is yours.
Yeah.
And then you go where you get your weekends off in your phase 2 training. So that was where it sort of started. And then I ended up in Germany.
Yep.
So I've been in the army for about a year at this point. Didn't choose Germany. It just happened. Very lucky. Looking back, you get an extra allowance of pay to cover the fact that you're living in the euro.
Yeah.
You
It was some sort of type thing.
Basically, yeah, you're getting paid pounds, and you've got to convert that to euros for your spending.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a big extra on my pay, nearly a week's pay extra,
Right,
just for that.
brilliant.
So again, stupid money. I was like,
And how long were you in the military doing this then?
I was in the army for 5 years.
Right.
I was in Germany for 2.5. I think I was in Germany when I bought the first one. But coincidentally, me joining the army, having this extra cash sort of came, fortunately, really equally timed with my dad retiring.
Right.
My parents retired. So they wanted to diversify their income, bring something in monthly. And I knew that although the army was great, it's not a long-term thing. It's not like, back in the 90s where you used to do 22 years and you'd be made. You do a part-time job till state retirement age, and that was you. Whereas now it's not like that. You need a second career after it.
Yeah. Because 5 years, is that a typical time frame, or are people normally longer or shorter than that?
4 years is the minimum. A lot of people do 12 because that's the halfway point. I think the full term would be 22 or 24. I'm not too sure. But you do that and you get what would be classed as the half pension.
Right.
So you get a bit of a bonus there, whereby you get better money when your pension age comes. People leave whenever it suits. I mean, for me, it got to a point where I was just a bit bored with it and I wanted to do something else. And the 5 year point happened. COVID could mess with that a little bit. My last year in, I was pretty much chained into a single room, not doing any work.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't me.
Yeah.
I needed to be busy. So
Do you start feeling a little bit useless, for lack of a better
it was like
phrase?
cabin fever, literally. I was in a single room. I was earning still mega money because there was no furlough for me. I was just on a full wage, couldn't spend it. I was saving it, bought 2 houses during that time.
It's not always the money, is it? Sometimes it's about that satisfaction and thinking I'm actually being productive and getting something done and progressing with my life, really.
Yeah, again, whatever I was going to do, it was going to be a pay cut. So it stopped being about the money at that point. But I was enjoying the fact that I was saving stupid money to invest further, to boost that income when I came out. My parents were already into retirement once I left. So just kind of during that stage from being in Germany, starting in Germany and leaving the army 4 years later, we bought 6 between us.
Had you been thinking in that year's notice you had to give exactly what you were going to be doing the day you left, or were you thinking take a bit of time out, or what was the plan?
Yeah,
was there a plan?
I wanted to be, there was plan A, there was plan B, C, all the way through the plans, I gave my notice on the 30th of November 2019.
Right.
30th of November 2019, and then February happened and it was COVID.
Yep.
So I was a quarter of the way through my notice period and suddenly there was just no jobs. So plan A quite quickly became plan E.
And here he is.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah.
Welcome to plan E.
Yeah, correct. That was tough. That was tough. But just crack on, don't you? You just do it. So I got work with an agency doing HGV driving because I got the qualification from training in the army. So that was free. That was already there for me. So I got an agency work for 6 months. That enabled me to buy my first house, my first home
For yourself?
for myself. My girlfriend, she went to uni, so there was always going to be a lot of income there as well.
Right.
So needed to kind of fund that on kind of one wage, really.
It's really interesting, actually, because most people would think, well, I'll buy my own house first before I buy any investment properties, but you've actually bought 6 houses or part of 6 houses without actually buying your own place first.
Yep.
Was it ever a thought to get your own place first, or were you just thinking I need to look at the income generation before I look at?
Yeah, it just wasn't on the radar. Cause even in the army, I did Aldershot, I did Portsmouth, I did Germany, I did East Coast of Scotland.
So you didn't need it?
I didn't know where I was going to be. I didn't know where that job when I left was going to be. So buying a house, where do you buy it? Do you buy it with your parents? Well, maybe, but you might never live there. So that was just never on the radar at all. Not even slightly. Not even slightly. It was about that income.
Okay. So you've got these properties and you know a bit about investing in property, but what about sort of managing them?
Well, Because I started while I was overseas. My dad was in the first days of retirement, trying to get his feet up, enjoy himself a bit. It was what agent do we use?
Right.
That was, right, we've got this bought a bit of a project for the first one, probably the most of a project that we ever bought actually. It was a probate property, so it was very dated inside, needed the full.
Was this
full
in Hull
everything.
or?
This was in Beverley, the first
Beverley,
one.
right. Okay.
And as soon as we got it sort of nearly there with the works, it was, right, which agent do we use?
Right. So there's never any thought of, we can do this ourselves, we don't live far.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely
Why
not.
is that?
He was enjoying his retirement in the early days. As I say, I was in Germany, so I was like a hour difference in the time zone. That's not the end of the world, but I was working shifts, and I was doing 12-hour days at that point. You just don't want to finish a 12-hour day and be sending emails to your tenant. It's just it's just never a thing.
Not something you wanted to do. So you decided to put all the properties you were buying with an agent.
Yeah. So we had a little bit of a gap before we bought the second one, but we had an agent recommended, local agent, offices in Hull and Goal, that came recommended from a family friend who'd used them previously.
Recommendation's always a strong way, isn't it?
Absolutely, we haven't a clue.
Yeah,
we don't know what we need.
Someone you trust tells you that it's a place to go, then you probably going to do it.
Yeah,
tends to be the case.
Absolutely.
And then I understand that you were sort of sold, for lack of a better phrase, to somebody else as part of, not to us, although we have bought a few recently, but you weren't one of our acquisitions, were you?
No, we had 4 with this agent at the time, and again there was a bit of a gap between 4 and 5 and 6 came together, so there's a bit of a gap there, and we're all happy. They were small sort of family feel, a bit like we've got here. Although they had 2 offices, you picked up the phone and you knew who you were going to be speaking to. They knew you. It was. They just had it dead on from everything I saw. And bear in mind, I wasn't in the industry at this point, but I was really happy with the service. And yeah, we were purchased. That happened again mid-COVID. We just received a bulk email. That was it.
Right.
And that was from the new guys, not from the old guys.
So no contact from the old guys.
Nothing.
Just one email from the new guys.
Yep.
So you felt a little bit out in the loop a little bit, I guess, because you're used to this personal service. All of a sudden, you've got this very corporate email telling you that everything's going to change now, Jack. Sorry, but this is what's happening. Yeah. And how did it go from there?
Initially, it was all right. They managed to retain some staff from the old office. Great people that I'd come to know as well at that point. So that was great. And it just, they got bigger. I think they bought out more, and the service just started to tail off. Staff left, and that's always a key indicator as well, I think. So
somebody you've got a relationship decides to leave, it can be, all of a sudden your connection to that business is no longer because you didn't know anybody else there. I guess that's the complication with that.
Yep.
And then obviously we were in contact again, 2021 was it?
I think it was just before COVID.
Was it?
If I actually,
okay, time flies.
I think we were sat in your office with masks on.
Did we?
I think we might have done.
Yeah, I wouldn't have insisted on that, so maybe I was just being
maybe
hopeful that you it's something you wanted to do. But so you decided that the time was right, that this new agent you'd gone to, it was the field just wasn't right. The person had left.
Yeah.
You found us, I guess, online or
LinkedIn.
Right, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then you thought, I'll come and have a chat with them, see what's what. And now we do manage half of your properties now. We don't manage all of them.
No.
It's crucial to let everybody know, I guess.
Absolutely.
But that isn't your choice, is it necessarily?
No. The agent that we were bought by, they insisted on a very, very heavy payment for us to move the properties to Ultralets.
Right.
So what we've been doing is we've been waiting for the tenants to leave of their own accord. The property falls empty, and then they don't hold us to the fee.
Right.
So I think we were quoted over £3,000 to leave with the 5 that we had. So you already have a one that became vacant at the other 5.
£3,000 to leave.
Right. To leave.
Incredible, really. That they would even stand by that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
they still buy pretty heavily. So we've just been letting tenants move on of their own accord and then get it over to Ultralets when it's empty and go from there. So now I think we've got the 4th one just coming vacant. So,
just going back to the property stuff a little bit, there's a conversation we had recently, you probably remember, where we were talking about the separation between seeing your properties as a business and having properties that you own possibly in your own name, or running the finances for your property company effectively through your own bank account.
Yep.
So one thing that I'd noticed over the years is that the landlords that are able to distinguish the difference very clearly tend to find the whole process of being a landlord a lot less stressful. How's your business set up? How have you set it up over the years?
Exactly that. I think you need to cut all emotional ties with the money that you're spending for this business. You know, whether it's owned as a business or it's owned in your personal name, it doesn't matter. Certainly in my experience, you know, you might have it in your own name. You might have it in a bank account that's got your name on it, not a limited company. Absolutely fine. For me, it should be a separate account.
Right. So you run it as a separate bank account, but not as a business separately.
Yep.
As in a limited company.
No,
Right.
all the properties are in joint names.
Yeah.
We didn't do the limited company thing because we didn't see ourselves having 6 when we bought the first one. You know, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe it wasn't. There were plenty of plus and minuses, and that's a conversation for another day. But I think the minute you can cut your emotional tie to there's a bill and it's £3,000. You know, the minute that becomes next year's holiday, or hold off the house move that we were going to do, or the wedding, or
because when that notice comes in and it's new boiler and it's 1,400 quid or whatever it is, you know, the amount of times we get people saying, you know, how am I supposed to afford this? You know, it should be afforded out of the rental income of the business that you're running.
Absolutely.
I think people fail to see property ownership as it's a business in its own right, really.
Absolutely.
Because nobody likes to think 1,400 quid is going to come out of their personal bank account where the holidays are getting booked from and all the rest of it. It's a crucial mindset thing, really. But that kind of brings us on to what you're doing now within Ultralets, doesn't it? Because I guess my father-in-law, Ian, had highlighted to me a couple of years ago that there could be potentially an opportunity to get into financial services within our business, which I took seriously initially, and you mentioned it a couple of times, and then sort of I found out what you were doing, being one of our clients and chatting regularly. And I thought there could be some mileage in you coming into the business and exploring that opportunity. What is it about financial services and particularly insurance that interests you? Why did you get into that eventually?
Well, I did back to my kind of story really. I did the driving for 6 months with the agency. Got a job in lettings for one of the biggest corporate letting agencies in the country, countrywide in York. Had a fantastic 2 years there, just doing lettings. Again, it was what I knew as a landlord. Nothing was mind blowing to me. It was a hard job, lots of plates spinning, but it was all stuff that I knew about.
Got a newfound respect for letting agents.
Absolutely. Found out what they were doing for that 10%. I'll tell you. So that was really good. During my time there, on a purely transactional, non-advised basis, sold some insurance.
Right.
So Countrywide had a policy for tenants and a policy for landlords. So there wasn't a case of what's your budget, which policy meets those requirements. It wasn't that at all. It was, we've got a landlord policy, it'll cost you this, do you want it? No advice at all. I couldn't tell you it was good, couldn't tell you it was bad.
Was there a good uptake on that then? Would people trust the Bridgeford's brand and go and do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think people still, although they weren't getting advice, they still like to transact with the person. So did do fairly well. Got a lot of experience from that. You know, lots of different properties in York. Obviously, York similar to Hull. Few flooding issues, few things to learn about. So that was really good. And quite frankly, just enjoyed the insurance side more than I enjoyed the property side.
Really? Yeah.
You know, as much as being a landlord has been great for me, and I like the tie that this business has got to the property. For me, insurance just gets me out of bed a bit easier in the morning, I suppose.
So you went through CMAP qualification, which is traditionally for mortgages, isn't it?
Yep. So, like the insurance, obviously, had my appointments with a mortgage advisor. Quite fancied that. So did the mortgage advisor qualification, which includes the ability to advise on insurances as well as mortgages. So that all came in one nice tidy package. Did that myself my last year at Bridgeford's, and then here I am, I suppose. But I think that the key for me, you know, the mortgage side is great. It's interesting. It's not something that we're currently doing at the moment. But for me, the insurance it's exciting because to me, it's not about protecting the property or the life or whatever it is. It's about protecting the savings. You know, I mentioned right at the start here, for me, it was always save. So what I was brought up with, it's what my parents were doing. Done it all the way through my life. And I think no one wants to have that big bill and think, if I had insurance, I wouldn't have to pay this out of my personal account or out of my business account. And protecting those savings is kind of.
It's a really interesting perspective, actually, because to be honest, my personal opinion on insurance has always been that I need to get the cheapest policy I can because my lender insists on it. And I don't want to be spending a fortune on insurance because I've hardly ever claimed. I've never actually thought about twisting it on its head and thinking, on the off chance that I do have to claim, can I afford, through cash flow within my property business, to fund whatever the damages are? You know, if there was a flood in Hull again like we had in '07, unlikely, but could still happen, then it would cost buy-to-let landlords in this region millions, tens of millions to put the properties right again. Is that money there in cash flow, or, you know, are they covering themselves properly? Are they underinsured? So it did really get me thinking again, just having that conversation with you at the time, I guess.
So I mean, I've converted you then.
Not fully,
reasonable.
But yeah, I do definitely understand that side of it more, and I can see why people would want to protect money. 'Cause it's about protecting savings and money, isn't it, rather than the property, as you say.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of landlords who think I'll have a high end policy for my main residence, and I'll have something middle of the range, bottom of the range for my investment property. Fine. Let's just turn that on its head. Which property is which one of those, your home or your investment property, is more likely to put you at financial risk? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be that investment property. You know, more variables. Properties tend to be, you know, you're cycling people through them. Probably less well kept than your home. You know, that's the fact.
I guess a big part of it as well is if your home was flooded, let's use flooding as the example.
Yeah.
You can kind of put up with that. It's your own issue to deal with.
Yeah.
If your investment property's flooded, you've got a duty of care to the tenant to make sure they've got somewhere to live. So not only are you in for rehousing your tenant, you're in for potentially some of their stuff that's in there if they're not insured, or
no. So landlord wouldn't be expected to be responsible for the tenant stuff.
even under flooding.
Even
They would
under
have to do
flooding,
that, right?
That's the tenant stuff is entirely their risk.
Okay. But also, obviously, making sure they've got somewhere to be, and then making sure the property's right for them when they come back to it.
Yeah.
So the cost could be huge up for that.
Astronomical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, going back to people that are maybe bankrolling that from their income.
Yeah.
You know, same bank account. No one wants to be working for a month's pay and seeing it all go on hotel bills for their tenant.
Not only that, but the stress of it. You know, even just having to manage that situation. If you've got a full-time job, family, everything else going on, a couple of properties on the side, you've got that to deal with.
Yeah.
I guess the stress alone is worth having the right policy in place for, isn't it? Yeah. How's it been sort of working within the business since you started? How's it going dealing with our customers?
It's going really well. I think people are really, really open to having a forum where they can ask questions. You know, we've all bought insurance online. A classic example would be, you know, you compare sites for your car insurance. I'm all for them, particularly for car insurance, where most of the variables are about you. You put in your car registration number. It tells you what your car is, sorted. There's very little you can get wrong there. The rest of the variables are about yourself. So how long you've been driving, no claims, bonus, you know, all that kind of stuff.
It's black and white, isn't it?
It's very, very black and white. It's stuff that you really should know. With a property, there are so many more. The variables aren't about you. You know, it's your name, your date of birth, and your address. The rest is largely about the property. So there's
And the tenant.
And the tenant. So there's a lot more to get wrong. And I think you've got a landlord that's maybe bought online for years. Again, probably always goes for the cheapest because it's ranked number one on your compare site. As soon as they know you can have a conversation with somebody that does it for a job and is a landlord, and that there's no admin fees, no charge for that. You just pay for the insurance in the same way you would if you did it online. People have been really, really receptive, and I think that's been really good. I think the benefit of having me under the Ultralets banner is that you know, they're the guys that manage my property.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't insurance be in that? You know, we manage your property, but sort your insurance online, or you know, we use this broker. Why don't you go and have a chat with them? It just doesn't sit right with me.
Anyway, the situation, didn't we, where one of our clients, without going into too much detail, was nervous that he'd bought a policy to cover rent protection.
Yep.
That didn't quite correlate with how we'd referenced the tenant, and he was concerned that because that we didn't know what was required for his policy to be upheld, he might not be able to claim on it in the event of this issue that he'd had. In the end, he was able to do it, but it just highlighted that really we need to be aware of what policies our clients have got, even if they've not bought them through us, just so that we can make sure that they are actually getting value for the policy that they're paying for.
Absolutely. I think the issue is that when the insurance is transacted at arm's length from the property management, you do have those issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that really would.
I guess you could communicate with your agent and your insurance broker, but it's another job you've then got to do. But if it's all the agent's doing all of it for you, you know that it's all sorted and done over there.
Yeah.
So one thing that shocked me actually with doing this was that initially we did all our projections and worked out the viability of this prospect, and we thought that we'd predominantly be selling to landlords. I think at the time, well, I did certainly anyway.
Yeah.
And I was shocked by how many tenants are actually receptive to the offerings that we can present to them as well.
Absolutely.
We've probably done more tenant policies, have we, than landlord ones?
I would say very, very, very equal. Yeah, if not a little bit more. Yeah, absolutely.
And what we're finding that tenants why are they taking out insurance, and what type of insurances are they taking out typically?
I think there's a massive there's always been a massive stigma about insurance, and I think a lot of tenants are just a little bit skeptical when they buy it online. Is it going to actually pay out? What am I buying here? Am I sure? I'm moving to a property that I've seen for 15 minutes on a viewing 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Am I confident that I know what kind of locks are on the doors? Yeah. How far the nearest big tree is? All those kind of questions. And I think there's a real benefit to, again, speaking to somebody that has some information, doesn't ask as many far-flung, ridiculous questions, has access to products that they would have themselves, that they would recommend to their own tenants again, back there again. And it's been going really well. Online is convenient, I guess. You can do it at 7 o'clock at night with a cup of tea and in your dressing gown and slippers, right, on your sofa. Great. But you can't ask questions. Oh, what about this? Oh, well, am I covered if? Hey, that kind of question. Oh, so am I covered for flood then? Yeah, absolutely. But there's no one to ask on a bare site.
You don't really know where you're covered.
Small print, who does that? Yeah. Realistically, are you just going to be like, I'm sure it'll be fine. It won't happen anyway. Done. Whereas you've got the form to ask questions, and again, you're not paying for that. Yeah,
I mean, if I bought online and didn't really know what I'd bought, I'd feel like I'd almost wasted my money, because unless I know I'm truly protected for it, you may as well not really have it.
Absolutely, and we're seeing with the economic climate at the moment, people are trying to cut back on their costs. Yeah. Well, what are you going to do if things are becoming a little bit tight towards the end of the month? What's the first thing to go? Well, it's that insurance that I didn't really understand what I was buying when I bought it. Yeah. Here we are, 18 months on, I'm still not really sure, I've never needed it, cancel. Whereas if you've had a chat with somebody, you've come in to collect your keys, you've spoken to myself about it, you understand the benefits, you're going to be much more likely to keep that protection in place. And again, if a flood happens or a theft, or quite a common one is a burst pipe in the property.
Would this be for tenant contents then, I assume?
This is for the tenant. So the landlord's insurance would cover the building in the burst pipe situation. But the burst pipe would destroy the tenant's TV and laptop in the living room.
That's down to them.
Just below it. Yeah. That's down to them. And again, do they want to be dipping into their savings to buy these items again? Or do they want to be insuring? So
the best policy, I think, for everybody involved in the rental process is probably the income protection for tenants. Because interestingly, that's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Absolutely. Because not only is the tenant getting protected by having the policy in place in case of an illness or whatever happens, but also the landlord's rent is being protected at the same time. Yeah. Are our landlords seeing that as a benefit typically, or?
I think we're a little bit early days to see the benefits of that. I think the benefits will be massively understood. The minute we have go back to 2008, before you started this business, people were properly struggling, and I'm not sure we've quite seen that yet this time. I think the economy has been reasonably buoyant throughout the inflation issue. It's not quite been the same. But I think we have a major economic downturn and people are unemployed, mass unemployed. Policies that protect income, that wouldn't be an income protection policy in that case. It would be something slightly different. But policies that do that, or an income protection policy that would cover you if you were ill, unable to work, that kind of thing, those really do have their value for both parties, as you say.
Exactly, yeah.
So many more people 2020 onwards, long-term sick. I think it's, off the top of my head, 2.6 million in the UK are long-term sick. How are they paying the rent?
Yeah, and that's a concern for landlords.
Absolutely. If you're a landlord, you're an entrepreneur. You're accepting there's going to be a little bit of risk in exchange for profit for that rent money coming in. And I think your tenant being a bit responsible, tenant seeing the value for them as well as for their landlord, seeing that security can only be a win for both parties.
What would you say the main dangers of having the wrong policy are?
I think having the wrong policy, I mean...
Because there's a thing called de facto, isn't there? Some people might know what that is.
Yeah. So the de facto is it's an independent organisation that the rate insurance products. What we will find with a landlord policy is we'll have this star system. So we'll see a lot of landlords that will, depending on budget, be anywhere between 1 star and 5 star.
Right.
And purely on what that policy includes, what cover you've got, but also how much that cover is. So a classic for me would be a 1 star landlord policy. You wouldn't expect any cover for damage or theft by your tenant. So if your tenant maliciously damages the property, you've got a 1 star policy, you're paying for that yourself if it happens.
Fortunately, that doesn't happen too often, but
it doesn't. It doesn't.
When it does, it could be pretty expensive.
We've got a thorough referencing process. We do check with previous landlords, but it's a screenshot of the past, not a blueprint for the future.
Yeah.
And things can change.
Yeah.
So again, that's what we're insuring for. So that's your 1 star policy. A 3 star policy would probably include some coverage for your malicious damage or your theft, but a limited figure. So maybe £5,000. That's pretty good. Compared to 0, it's very good. And then your 4 or 5 star policies would have a much, much higher amount than your 5,000. Maybe even up to the total amount you've insured the buildings for. And that's just that's one single event. But having the policy at the bottom end is going to leave you vulnerable potentially to a £5,000 bill that another £50 a year could have covered you for. And that's it really. The wrong policy. I would be reserved at advising a landlord to go for a 1 star policy. But fundamentally, if that's all they could afford, some protection is better than none.
This is the thing with advising, isn't it? Because obviously you are FCA regulated advisor.
Yes.
So you're just explain exactly what the difference between an advisor and an online search is.
So when you get that advice service, you're accepting that you've been helped through the process, and you are receiving a service that the online providers aren't offering. Advised means if we haven't got a product that meets your needs, we won't put a product in place for you.
We tell you.
It's not sales. We say, well, why don't you try these guys? These guys really specialise. A classic one for Hull is flooding. We can't provide you with flood cover. We'll tell you, this is the price without flood cover. Alternatively, these guys specialise in cover for properties that have flooded previously. Why don't you have a chat with those, see if it's affordable for you? If it's not, we'll do this for you. We'll exclude the flood, and at least you're covered for the rest.
Yeah.
That's advice. It's not, how do we sell? How do we shift more policies? It's not that at all.
You're not just pushing a flat product like you might have done in the other agent in the past where it was,
previously when I've been non-advised, it's do you want it? I'm not going to tell you that, we'll tell you the benefits. I'm not going to tell you that it's better than this one.
Yeah.
That's the advice coming in. That's the value of it. Why is this policy £50-60 cheaper a year than this one? Well, it's this and this. Is that worth it for you?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess with the de facto star rating, you would have a chat with the client and work out what their priorities are. Is it to have the most comprehensive cover possible, in which case you're then advising to go for 5 star de facto. If they're very price conscious and a bit more prepared to take risk, then it's the other way, isn't it?
Very possibly.
It's understanding their needs and then mirroring it into the product that's on offer.
Absolutely. Although one thing I would say, specifically in Hull, where obviously we've had that flooding in 07, as you alluded to earlier, it's not always the case that a better policy is more expensive.
Right.
Quite a few times I've done landlord quotes and I've thought, that's top end cover, and that is really, really well priced. Because of Hull, because postcodes have different risk. Flooding particularly, and different risk associated with it. For flood, we might see that insurer A that's a 5 star is quite happy with the flood risk of that postcode, whereas insurer B that's got a 3 star policy is really unhappy with that postcode. So we do see a big differentiation. So again, it's all about just checking. That's what I do. That's where I earn my money. I do that checking. We go, well, okay, your budget's this. That's kind of generally middle of the road. For what landlord was spending, you're bang on average there. But actually, you can have this policy that's way above average, just because this insurer likes the postcode, and that's all part of it.
Jack, I've never met somebody who loves insurance as much as you.
Reasonable.
But credit to you for getting stuck in. And don't forget, if you are watching this or listening to this, and you've got a house that you need to insure yourself, you've got a buy-to-let property, you might be a tenant yourself, you need some cover sorting out. Jack's details are in the description. He's more than happy to discuss anything with you, offer some advice, and potentially sort out a policy for you going into the future. So get in touch with him. That concludes everything for today. Thanks very much for watching. Like and subscribe to our YouTube, please. I've been told to say that. See you soon.